All right, everyone, welcome back to some more World of Warships, and today we are taking a look at the new and upcoming update 6. Actually, we've moved on to a whole digit of 6. So this is probably going to be the most major change recently to your commanders. Obviously, the most major thing of this update is going to be the revamp of the commander skills, and it is interesting to say the very least. There are a few other minor things that they did, more aesthetic appealing, I guess. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but let's actually take a look at the commander skill. First thing you can notice is that they've actually completely reduced the commander skills down to 4 tiers. It used to be 5 tiers, obviously, required 5 points to get the most advanced training on your captains, but they've also shifted things around, and they've added new stuff, and they've altered different stuff. So we'll take a look at them. So I have my destroyer captain. Every ship's going to be a little bit different. I'll try to talk about each one. Carrier, I'm a little bit, I don't want to say inexperienced, but I'm a little bit more inexperienced, so I do apologize if I don't can't really say that much on the carriers. So commander, as far as the skills go, you have 4 categories. You have endurance, attack, support, and versatility. And as normal, there's 24 skills total. And your captain technically can go up to 19. I'll talk about the captain skill point. So let's actually start looking at them. So the very first one is called priority target. After the skill is mastered, the situation awareness detected indicator will show the number of your opponents in the enemy team that are currently aiming at your ship with the main battery guns. It's a nice little thing. Honestly, I wouldn't consider it a very required skill. It's nice to know who's actually aiming at you and how many. So in case like 4 or 5 ships are aiming at you, you know you probably need to disappear. But it's very situational. But that's just kind of my look on it. Now the second one is preventive maintenance. This one I believe is a old one. I might be wrong, so do forgive me if I'm a little bit wrong. It reduces the risk of incapacitation of modules by minus 30%, so kind of beneficial. It'll help your guns and your torpedoes, as well as I believe also your secondaries and your AAs from being taken out, so kind of beneficial. Then we go on to the attack expert loader. Still, I don't recommend it. It basically reduces the time of reload if your guns are already reloaded. So if you have AP loaded and all of a sudden a destroyer pops up and you need to switch over to HE, yes, beneficial but situational. That's almost kind of what I'm getting with all these captain skills. It's very situational when to use. But we'll go ahead and take a look on the next one. Our aircraft servicing expert. It increases the health of all carrier-based aircrafts by 5%, and it reduces the servicing time of carrier-based aircrafts. I would almost say get this one if you are running a carrier. Now this one's actually really neat. I actually had it on my Gneisenau. We'll actually quickly jump over to my Gneisenau. And it is actually a really neat little skill. So when the catapult fighter or spotting aircraft consumable is activated, an additional aircraft is launched. However, the airspeed of the catapult aircraft is decreased. So you get an additional aircraft in the air. So you'll have 2 flying around you, but they won't go around as quickly. But here's also the kicker. So you would expect, they don't launch simultaneously either. They launch one by one. So that's something to keep in mind. But you would expect them to go, say, just one would launch and would start going clockwise. The second one would launch about maybe a halfway after the other one, and it would also start going clockwise. That's not actually how it happens. The first one will go clockwise, but the second one will go counterclockwise. So there will be a point where they will actually meet at the bow and the stern of your ship. So that's something to keep in mind is, yes, you will have that additional aircraft spotting for you, but at those 2 points, either if you have going off against a destroyer, they will have a slight invisibility when those aircrafts are actually at your stern, so to speak. So that's something to keep in mind. I would almost say this would probably be the best skill for anyone that has fighter crafts, such as cruisers and battleships. But we'll continue looking on. Now the second one is Dogfighting Expert, another carrier. This will increase the average damage per second of fighters for each tier of difference between them, plus 10% to fighters' ammunition. So kind of beneficial, but the only benefit would probably be to the ammunition. So you don't have to go back and reload your fighter crafts as often. Then on to this incoming fire alert. Same as the original. You will know when you're being shot at if the target is more than 6 seconds away as far as the shells are incoming. And then the last one is Evasive Maneuver. This is once again more carrier based. It minus 40% to detectability of strike aircraft when returning to the carrier, plus 15% to HP of strike aircraft when returning to the carrier. And just ignore this. I was trying out a skill. I'll talk about it in a little bit. So, and then minus 30% to airspeed of strike aircraft when returning to carrier. So this is beneficial if your aircrafts are returning and you don't want them to die as quickly and they're actually more harder to detect. So beneficial, I would say, but I would probably wait till you actually go back. If you don't have anything else, might get that. So for at least the first tier on skill for a destroyer, there isn't really a whole lot. I would almost say either priority target, which once again is situational, but I would almost say preventive maintenance. I might be wrong. This might change, or there might be a better way, but as far as I can tell with the destroyers, that's going to be the best bet. Now, the second tier, we're starting off with Higher Alert. Very similar, exactly the same as the last one. Minus 10% to reload time of the damage control party consumable. Beneficial? Yes, a little bit, but not the greatest need for it, honestly. Second one is Jack of All Trades, which was actually, I believe, a 5-point skill on the live server right now. This minus 5% to reload time of all mounted consumables. Kind of beneficial. I think it actually changed. Might be wrong. Then on to the next one is Expert Marksman. Hasn't changed at all. Then we have Torpedo Acceleration, which jumped up from a tier 3 to a tier 2. And then we come to a new one, the Smokescreen Expert, which is actually kind of interesting, which is really beneficial for the destroyers or some cruisers that do have smokescreen. This will give you plus 20% to the radius of the smokescreen. So your smokescreens are actually going to be bigger, but I honestly don't say it's that beneficial. I mean, granted, yeah, additional 20% increases the radius, but honestly, I don't think it's that beneficial, but that's my opinion. Then we go on to Expert Rear Gunner, plus 10% to the average damage per second of self-defense armaments of aircrafts. Exact same skill as the live server. Then we go on to Adrenaline Rush, which I believe, I'm trying to remember, I don't think this was on, I might be wrong. And then Last Stand, obviously you want to get that. Now, if I was playing a destroyer captain, I would get these two. These two obviously are going to be very beneficial if you're playing the Russian, the German, or even the American. The American possibly you can get away with Expert Marksman. But yeah, that's what I would do for the second tier. Then we move on to third tier, Fire Prevention, just like before. And it also, this is actually something new. I just realized this. Minus 7% to the risk of fire. The maximum number of fire sources on a ship is reduced to 3. Previously, it was 4. So 4 took a huge chunk of damage away from you. it was terrible to have 4 fires. But this actually prevents it to 3. Well, one might not be too bad. It'd be more beneficial for battleships, but I think there's other skills that are probably going to be more beneficial than this. Next one is Basics of Survivability. Was a tier 1 skill on the live server, minus 15% to time of repairs. And then Torpedo Armament Expertise, which was, I believe, a tier 2 on the live. It's now our tier 3. So this reduces the time of reload on torpedo tubes by 10% and torpedo planes by 20%. So it's not bad. Now this one is, I would almost say, very beneficial for carriers. Yes, it is slightly situational based, I agree, but it's a really nice skill to have. Plus 100% to aircraft servicing time when the carrier is on fire. So even if your carrier deck is on fire, you can launch aircrafts and you can recover aircrafts. So actually not bad. That one's actually not a bad skill for a carrier. I'd almost say that is what you would do for the tier 3 on the carriers. Then we have basics firing training, which was a tier 1. This obviously decreases the reload rate of main guns up to and including 139 millimeters and plus 20% average damage per second of a defense. So huge shift on basics firing training. Then we have Superintendent. This obviously adds 1 additional charge. And then we have Demolition Expert, which actually changed a little bit. It's actually been nerfed than it was previously. Plus 2% to chance of fire on target caused by main battery shell, secondary, or bomb, etc. I believe it used to be plus 3%. So they've actually nerfed Demolition Expert. And then the last one is going to be Vigilance, plus 25% acquisition range of torpedoes. Really hasn't shifted anywhere. Now, as far as German destroyers, I'm still kind of learning. I would almost say either get torpedo armament, which increases the reload on your torpedoes, or get Demolition Expert, because I believe the fire damage on the German destroyer is about 6.5%, so that brings it up to 8.5. So we'll just go with Demolition Expert for the time being, just to show off what skills you can get. Now, the 4th skill is where the top of the line skills are the most valuable. Manual fire control for secondary armaments, exactly the same as previously. Then we have Survivability Expert, plus 400 of health points for each ship tier. Then we have a new skill, Inertia Fuse for HE shells. Increases the armor penetration capacity of HE shells fired from both main and secondary battery guns at the expense of decreasing the chance of setting the enemy ship on fire. So it gives you plus 25% to the armor penetration capacity of HE shells, but minus 6% to the chance of fire on target caused by HE shells. I honestly am trying to think of a situation where this would be proved beneficial. I would almost say that it would be beneficial on like the Bismarck or something like that, but I honestly don't see any good use for it. I mean, I might be wrong, but there's always good time to actually experiment with these skills and see what works. Unfortunately, I haven't had all the time to try these out, but we'll see how these go. Now, the next skill is Air Supremacy. You get plus 1 fighter, plus 1 bomber. I believe it was a tier 2 or tier 3 on the live server, something like that. But then we go on to Advanced Firing Training, which was a tier 4. Now it's a tier 4 as well. Good observation there. This obviously gives you plus 20%. Does exactly the same. And then we move on to Manual Fire Control for AA. So then we go on to the next one, which is Manual Fire Control for AA armaments. Hasn't changed from the last one, just Same place, same. I would almost say between these two, these would be the best for if you're running a anti-aircraft. So that's the only time. Now, this is a new skill. This is radio position finding. Shows the direction of the nearest enemy ship. The enemy player will be alerted that a bearing was taken on their ship. The skill will not work if a player is playing with an aircraft carrier. Now, I did try this on my Nuremberg, and what it does is it shows... It's hard to really describe without actually showing you. Actually, I'll go ahead and post a kind of a image of what it looks like when you are in battle. But it's very situational. I don't really see that much use for it, but still time will tell. And then the last one is obviously Concealment Expert. For a destroyer, I would almost say, depending on what destroyer is, probably actually a very good thing to consider. Concealment Expert obviously is what you want. And then you do have additional 4 points. You can always go back and get something else. You can always get Advanced Firing Training, which increases your range. Or you can get Superintendent. It really just comes down to your playstyle. There's going to be a lot of new builds in this, and it's kind of interesting. We'll just go for that. Now, originally I had hope for my Gneisenau. I was just trying it out, that you could get both the manual fire control and then advanced firing training and then also Concealment Expert. I was hoping this, but here's the kicker. You can actually, if you have enough free experience, you can actually increase the skill. So you can convert free experience to the next skill, if I am correct. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of free experience, but you can see it actually caps out on 19. And technically, you can actually get this build, say this build for example, but you're also losing Superintendent, so you still have to make the choice of either going manual fire control or not have Superintendent, which honestly is not the worst thing in the world, but having that additional heal is always beneficial. So technically you could have a Bismarck Fitted Gross or Kurfürst with Concealment Expert plus manual fire control of secondary armaments. Technically you could, and that would prove very terrifying. Now obviously everything's going to be a little bit different with each ship. For example, you wouldn't have Demolition Expert on a German. True, it might be beneficial, but it's going to be interesting to see how things turn out. But so this is a quick look at the new and upcoming commander skills that are going to be out as soon as the update 6 hits live servers, and it's going to be very experimental. Honestly, I will have to say it's going to be interesting to see how these builds will work out. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Zaijian.